Given what has happened,
Yes, sir.
do you see yourself in a different light?
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
I think I'm wiser. I think I'm smarter, believe it or not. My family may disagree, but I'm going to stand by this. I think I have a better sense of humor, keener sense of wit. I am more reflective, and I have a whole lot less money. In fact, I'm broke.
Speaking of money,
Yep.
you pleaded guilty to defrauding people out of $3-some million.
Correct.
You paid the money back.
Correct.
All of it.
All of it.
3.5,
6.
3.6 million.
Who's counting?
You were in home confinement for almost a year. Does that mean you could never leave home?
Well, thank you for mentioning the fact that I paid everybody back. That has gotten lost in the myriad of stuff. And as you may or may not know, one outlet gave the report and never mentioned full restitution. And perhaps it's not been mentioned because, as I understand it, it's very, very rare, if not downright history making.
For that to happen?
Yes, sir. So I'm not bragging about it, but it's a function of, it's a matter of fact. And I think it should be mentioned so that if and when others are found guilty of committing wire fraud, they should be inspired or motivated to try to pay people back.
So since you've brought all this up, I have to ask you this.
Sure.
Nobody in your church was defrauded.
Thank you for asking that. Oh, I was telling my wife yesterday, throughout this entire process, the 1,171 days in Beaumont, the 329 days on home confinement, even after I was indicted, I had not felt a sense of shame. And I had not felt a sense of shame because I know I did not intentionally defraud anybody. I know I paid back both my part and my co-defendant's part. So shame, I was crestfallen about it and very sad, but shame was not a part of the equation.
Embarrassed?
Well, let me just finish. But when I was accused of stealing money from the elderly members of my church.
Not true.
Absolutely untrue. And I felt a sense of shame. Not because it was true, but because the thought of that happening is so painful to me that when somebody walked by, say, oh, there goes that Caldwell who stole money from the elderly members of the church. That mere thought of that just punched me in the gut, and in a sense has left a stain on my soul.
Pastor, we
That's
know
how special that is to me. Yeah.
We know what happened.
Right.
The question is,
Well, some folk know what happened.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
The question is, why did it happen?
Oh, very good. You may recall the press conference,
I do.
and you were there.
I was there.
I held in my hand 14 to 16 documents, and I said, I am not guilty because I have these contracts in my hand, and I waived them. By the way, parenthetically, having that press conference was a bad idea. I got bad advice about that, but we're not going to cry over spilled milk. Let's go for it. And I accept. Oh, Len, excuse me. Let me say, in a very clarion and clear way, with a horn, bullhorn, whoo-hoo, I accept full responsibility for my poor judgment and subsequent illegal action. I accept full responsibility.
So explain to
While
me.
it may not be intentional, I accept responsibility.
You say it wasn't intentional. So what was it?
Well, here we go. Back to the. Oh, you're really good. 14 to 16 documents in my right hand. I am not guilty because I have these contracts in my hand. 16 different entities or individuals, organizations that have promised to buy the bonds. Little did I know that none of those contracts, not one, had a performance date. Therefore, they were not enforceable.
So you're
I
saying
did not know that, and I should have known it.
you have an MBA
I do.
from a prestigious university.
Absolutely. 50
You
years.
worked on Wall Street.
Exactly for a year.
How could you not know?
That's exactly what the courts would have said. Precisely. And not only did I not know, the attorney I had working with me did not know either.
So you're saying that you didn't intend to defraud people. You thought they were going to get a return on their investment, and you were fooled.
Absolutely. I lost money as well, and a lot of it.
That's the story.
Well, that's the truth.
Boy, 7-year ordeal this has been.
By the way, while you're holding that thought,
Yeah.
if I may, I paid everybody back, both my part and my co-defendant's part. I began paying the investors, or the victims, as the government calls victims, investors, back before I was indicted.
Before you were
Over
indicted.
$1 million were paid back before I got indicted. As people would ask for the money, I gave it to them. And I'm probably leaning over my skis right now, and my friend who's sitting behind you may tell me don't say this, but I remember with clarity when one of the investors asked for the money back, I paid it back, and I can still hear my wife saying, "Why do you always have to pay people back? Why doesn't the other guy pay people back?" To which I said, I told her what he told me as to why he couldn't pay people back, but I paid him back. And listen, call me foolish, call me gullible, call me whatever. If I had it to do over again, I'd still pay him back because it's the right thing to do.
So you're saying
In spite of the fact that I've got no credit for it. Excuse me.
you're saying this whole thing, you were duped into thinking that this investment was legitimate. Is that what you're telling me?
I've had several folk put that in writing about me, yes. I mean, is that, look.
I can hear people saying,
Yeah.
well, of course he's saying that now.
Right. Well, I understand why they would. So look, I didn't wake up one morning and say, God, you know what? Today's a great day to break the law. Let's go do that. No, not at all. So
So
yeah.
you're the pastor of a church with like 14-some thousand people. You have all these great community involvements and projects. Why were you trying to sell bonds? Did you need the money?
Well, no. And several folk have asked me about that. And again, this is where the dupe comes in. So let me, before I answer that, gullible, me. Yes, I mean, I can't deny that. Dumb, made a bad decision. Yep, that's me. I erroneously believed with all my heart that one of these 14 or 16 deals was going to pay off, and we would be able to invest in the community at a whole nother level beyond the $75 million worth of improvement that we'd already implemented.
So you thought this was a good deal, so you to turn around and invest in the community?
Well, no. That the proceeds that would come from the bond sales would be used to invest in the community.
Prosecutors said you took out a line of credit and used the money to pay for bills, your own personal bills. Is that true?
I don't recall that. Who said that?
I read a report. Not true?
I don't know about that.
No personal line of credit? You didn't pay mortgages, pay for the house, cars? Nothing?
Well, rephrase the question.
Rephrase it.
Yeah. I did not take out a lot of credit, no. But
Did you use any of the money
from proceeds?
from the proceeds to pay for your own bills?
So that's what my attorney told me. I think some of the money was used to pay one house note, right? And that was a problem. See, so that's the deal. The money was paid, folk paid for the bonds, or they invested in the deal, right? And I put the money in an account. And that was a mistake too, because I think one of the allegations was commingling of funds.
Okay.
Right? We have money that came from the bond deal, mingling with house money. That was a mistake. In my mind, I'm thinking, I'm paying everybody back when they ask for the money anyway. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is commingling, irrespective of the fact that I was the bank, so to speak, that repaid the people when they asked for the money.
It sounds like your explanation doesn't pass a smell test.
Well, obviously it did not. Spent 1,171 days in jail. But let me just tell you, right? Since my co-defendant was not paying back anybody, and I was paying back everybody out of the funds, then it was one pot. And that was a pot for reimbursement.
Some of the money you did use to pay for, what did you say, a house note?
I don't remember that, but the government says I did, so if they said it, I did it.
You don't remember?
Len, I mean, you talk about 9, 10 years ago.
You went to prison.
Yeah.
I think I remember.
Yeah, I went to prison because of that, exactly. But so if you've got, number of transactions going on at the same time, and let me be clear. Now, I'm not saying I did not do it at all, because the government clearly said I did, and we're riding with that.
Were you being gullible or greedy?
One could argue that it was greed, but I tell you, as people ask for their money back and you give it to them, one could make the statement that says, all right, you are promised 20% return on your money. That alone could be an argument for greed, no doubt about it. What was also going on at the time, I knew some folk who were actually getting it done.
Getting 20% on the same investment?
Involved in the deal and being successful. It was very rare, but it was occurring.
I want to move on.
Yep.
The church posted on Instagram, "Our visionary leader has returned. Do you feel worthy of leadership again?"
I don't know if I've ever felt worthy of leadership. Very humble and honored to have been in leadership position. Very honored and humble to be able to return this week as well, and in the weeks to come. But sense of worthiness, that'd be a little bit strong.
It seems the congregation has embraced you and forgiven you.
Well, hold the phone. I've only been back one Sunday. We'll interview me 3 or 4 months from now, and we'll see about that one.
Do you know folks who have not forgiven you?
Well, I don't know them personally, but I'm sure there's some.
Have you lost members of the church because of this?
They left when I went to Beaumont.
Really?
Some did.
How many?
Don't know. Ask me Monday after Sunday.
Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. How do you rebuild trust?
One day at a time.
You apologized to the victims in 2021 is what I read, correct?
And one way I apologized to them about paying them the money back, plus over $500,000.
Did the victims accept your apology? I know they took the money, but did they accept the apology?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't interface with them.
What was prison like?
Well, a lot more complicated and convoluted than, it was tough. It was a big adjustment.
What was your daily routine? Explain.
Well, one of the biggest adjustments, let me just answer it like this, is that while I was in prison, oftentimes time would stop. You look at the clock and it's 10:15. You come back again, you look at the clock, 30 minutes later it's 10:17.
Time is not moving like,
so to speak.
if you were out running around.
Slow, painful.
And so what was your routine from morning till bedtime?
Well, slow. When I had a job, the days went a lot faster.
What was the job?
Oh, usually orderly. Basically, that means janitor. So I was orderly in 3 different locations. And towards the end of my sentence, I worked in the library.
Doing what?
I was a librarian, basically.
The librarian?
Yeah. But the orderly, you're a janitor. I was a janitor. You clean the floors, clean the toilets, baseball, swept, mop. It was great.
Has prison changed you in any way?
I think it has. You asked that earlier. I think, I've read, not just the Bible, but books in general, a lot. I've read a lot over the last 1,500 days. So from that standpoint, I think I'm wiser. I think I know myself better. I think I'm more patient too.
I'm assuming you prayed in prison.
You assume correctly.
What was your prayer?
Well, for starters, my prayer was I wouldn't die from COVID.
Because you were in during COVID.
I was in during COVID, and several folk died at the low, which is not very far from where I was. Right behind that prayer was that the Lord would take care of my children and my wife, my family, and my church family. I was very concerned about all those. And those are probably the 2 primary prayers. And then, of course, thirdly is that I'd get out before the date that was on the paper.
What was the total sentence?
7 years.
And you did almost 3.5.
3 years and 4 months.
And so how did you get out early?
First Step Act. Everybody has access to what's called a First Step Act.
Which means?
Basically got credit for time served. That was a legislation passed by one of the presidents. So I didn't get any special favors.
I see.
Yeah.
Did other inmates know who you were?
Oh, Lord, before I got there.
And what did they say?
They were very kind. In fact, and I told some members this the other day, the spirit of brotherhood, the spirit of community, the spirit of connectivity in prison is better than your typical church.
Really?
Really.
Well, you're also in a minimum security white collar environment, am I correct?
Well, easy on the white collar. I mean, minimum security, relatively speaking.
Were there violent offenders?
I shouldn't comment on that.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go back to something.
Yeah.
When you pleaded guilty.
Yeah, I want to go back to something too, but go ahead.
No shame, embarrassment, regret?
Now, you didn't say regret. Regret for sure. But, and let me qualify the shame. There was no shame from the standpoint that, I knew that I did not knowingly and willingly defraud anybody. That was not my intention. It is what happened. I accept responsibility for it. But again, didn't wake up and say, let me go mess over somebody today. No. So from that standpoint, it was no shame. From the standpoint of, my family, what my family had to go through, what the church family had to go through, those who supported me went through a lot of regret and heaviness about that.
When you pleaded guilty,
Right.
What did your family think?
They thought that's better than 20 years. When the government indicts you, my humble recommendation is that you find the best attorney you can who knows the court, and you go cut a deal. Because the stats are not on your side.
You were a spiritual advisor to President George W. Bush, President Obama. Did they ever reach out to you?
Well, I communicated with one of them.
You won't say which one?
Of course not.
You reached out to them or they reached out to you?
That was a reaching out.
I told someone I was doing this story and their response was, well, that's why people don't go to church. These pastors. You know that that's
yes
a theme here.
And I tell you, I tell you, that's another point of regret, is that people would feel that way. And I totally understand why they would. And to that I would say, don't judge God based on God's people. Don't judge God based on the mistakes that God's people make. And for that matter, don't judge a person's total character based on one mistake that he or she has made.